I want to talk about this one here because this is a post that what happened here, right, Titan? Of course, we have talked about Figurama here, this company based in the Middle East. They have amazing products, but this situation happened. It was posted here. That sounds like they might go into administration if they can find the cash. It smells like an eerie. Hopefully, it's not the same situation. Okay. Figurama Collectors has proven to be this is the person that created the post. This is actually a shipper. Figurama Collectors has proven to be an untrustworthy company, consistently postponing freight payments for more than 6 months. Despite our attempts to resolve the issue, they have deceived us at every turn. We are now preparing to take legal action in China and hold all relevant projects in the country. So he's holding all the products, all the shipments hostage. They owe me more than $40,000, $41,000. And they're still, and these are still 2023 freight. So that's just for 23 they haven't paid. So they have a lot of unpaid invoices. Their behavior is unbearable. They have been deceiving me for 6 months, procrastinating again and again. Now, I will tell you one thing. $43,000, $41,000 is a lot of money. I'm not saying that it's not. The whole ordeal, of course, there are defenders here in this post of Figurama. And they are, of course, defenders of this freight. I'd say, you know, Figurama needs to pay the bill. As even the poster is saying, there's the signs that this is going to happen. The same happened with Oniri if there's no cash flow. And I posted there something. This was my response because I posted, there was some back and forth with some other collectors in reference to that. I will tell you this. It's not a good sign for Figurama, of course. But it's important to realize that all companies go for moments where there's uncertainty. That's like we talk about with XM Studio. There's a lot of uncertainty in the markets right now. Companies are not like banks. They're not holding their money like every time they get a pre-order or they get project doesn't mean that there's good cash flow. And I think the problem that we see here is that Figurama is suffering for cash flow. They don't have enough money to pay every single bill. He showcased some of the text messages that they have between each other. I will tell you the situation, the owner of Figurama is trying to say, well, we're going to pay you a certain amount. We cannot pay it all, but let's work it out. Let's just make it work. I'm going to pay you. He is accusing them, this guy is accusing them that they're not paying their bill. They promise they're going to pay, but they don't pay the bill. So honestly, it doesn't look good on Figurama for sure. And definitely, in my opinion, if you owe money, you need to pay the money. You need to find a way to pay the money. At the same time, this person goes on social media and vent everything to everyone there. And to me, that is not professional at all. Honestly, companies shouldn't be, you know, if you have a business, you know, and I said this many times before, where you're dealing with clients, it's better to keep things to yourself. If you have a problem with a client that is not paying you, first of all, foremost, don't do anything with them. And just simply take whatever action you need in order to get paid, if you have to take a legal action. But this bully tactic of going into social media and vent, I was going through some of the notes, some of the comments. It's like they had been paying partially, but not fully. And this guy wants to get paid, you know, fully for everything they owe. The reality is that even if you go to court, in any court of law, if you show that you have willingness to pay, at least receive that you're making partial payments, that's all the judge needs in order to give you the case and not go further into any other details of the situation. A judge cannot force anyone to pay like as you want to. And people are saying, but you know, they're defaulting on the credit, they're defaulting on the promises, they made a contract. There's no contract. You know, when you do freight stuff, you don't make contracts with these companies. You may have a line of credit, and that's the reason why big freighters, that sometimes what they do, when I have dealt with this, you enter into disagreement, they may have line of credits through different banks. It seems that he doesn't have none of this. It's a very small type of producer. Maybe, you know, charges cheaper than the big ones. So there's no line of credit. You're not dealing with a bank, because all he needs to do, if you have a line of credit, simply the bank will open your credit. You have a certain amount. As long as you're making payments, you're good to go. So that's some more internal between Figurama collectors. I think Figurama collectors need, the problem that I see with all of this is that right now Figurama doesn't have enough credit to get things done in a different route. So maybe it's opting out for cheaper with smaller vendors to do certain things, and this is hurting them at the long run. It also shows that there's probably Figurama is not as big as they seem to be, or they don't have as much money available or cash flow in order to cover all the expenses. Now, it's important to know that just because a business look good or they produce certain things doesn't mean that there's a lot of money, that they have money. It's not like they, like they have a vault where they put all the money of the pre-orders and the money stays there. When they need it, they just grab it. No, many of these companies, when they buy these licenses, when they pay for the original licenses, they're very expensive. Sometimes cost millions of dollars for them for these licenses. And in order to sustain that, they constantly invest the money, they pay for that. Then they gotta pay the banks, they borrow the money to pay that. Then they gotta do this, they go to the next project and the next project. So technically the projects are kind of sustaining the company, paying the salaries, doing everything. It's not like they have like a copious amount of money sitting around. And sometimes, those are the things where some of these owners, they skip some bills in order to sustain themselves. And that is just part of the process of building a business. I'm telling you, when you start building a business, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. At the first 3 years of any business is known this. The first 2-3 years, you make no money. Everything is red. Everything you're doing is starting to recover. Figurama is not that old of a company. So these signs are not good, but at the same time, I don't think they're out of the ordinary. I feel that the company needs to be more steady. They definitely need to have investors. They definitely need to look for other ways to make money. Investors, they have good projects. They do have great projects. I think they have great stuff that they have showcase, they have pre-order stuff, but they need to be more sustainable. And perhaps they need to have a better manager in the company that is running the numbers. Maybe they need to hire somebody to run their numbers to make sure that everything is covered. Because it seems that Rakir is the owner of the company dealing directly with them. That really shows you that he is a small company. Most of the time, CEOs, they also have an administrator. They have, a controller. Maybe you need someone who controls the company, make sure all the bills are paid, everything is done correctly. It's a word of mouth type of deal. Now this freighter is gonna hold the stuff for ransom so he doesn't get paid. It's just a mess. And hopefully they can figure it out. Hopefully that. But yeah, definitely, there's a lot of situations that companies have to deal with, and this is one of them. Sometimes they gotta deal with other vendors. They gotta pay all those bills. It's not a simple thing. Just because you pre-order something and they're like 350 pieces that were totally sold, that doesn't mean that they have enough cash flow in order to cover all the expenses. They move from one pre-order to the next in order to cover all the stuff. And it takes time for a company to grow big. I'm not here to justify what Figurama is doing. I just feel that it takes time. You gotta get given a little bit of room and avoid all this drama that happens in social media, because now it's a back and forth here. People are talking, defending. I was saying, putting my views. Some people came at me and says, well, you need to understand this is the way China is. And it's like, you know what? I understand how China works. I used to work for a company that used to deal with China, so I know how they are. But bully tactics don't work around outside of China. Yes, in China, they're used to blast people on social media. We don't do that in the West. We don't do it because, first of all, it's unprofessional, opens the door for slander, opens the door for a lawsuit against the company. Easily Figurama, with all this mess, they can sue them, counter-sue them, even not in China because they're not based in China, so they don't have to. They can do it in Dubai or any other country and simply claim that they're lost revenue because this vendor has been making accusations, not allowing the customers to buy, stopping them to buy, and they lost revenue. So they can actually go after them for damages. So it becomes a messy situation. And at the end of the day, I would say, yes, when you're dealing with different companies from different countries, there's always going to be a different culture, a different mindset to deal with. But I feel that companies should be careful. Anybody, whether you are a vendor, whether you're a freighter, whether you are a factory, you have to be very careful how you deal with the clients, because that is also affects you. And other people are seeing the way you behave, and other clients are gonna lose the respect for you. Yes, you might get away with it in China because of the situation, the peculiar situation of China. It's not the same as in the West, because we have freedom of speech. Doesn't mean that we can always say whatever and we can always do whatever, because there are consequences. If I say something about my employer today, I lose my job tomorrow. If I say something about a client today, in the company that I work for, there's paperwork that you sign that you will not disclose any information of the company or any dealings with no one, no client. You cannot disclose it, because then you're violating situations. The company simply lets you go. And then if there are legal repercussions, you're responsible, not the company, because you took it upon yourself to express or to give information that is private, that is only between the company and the client. where there is money that is owed, whatever. There's things that you cannot simply disclose. Yeah, I know it's a difficult situation. I know China is different. Somebody was saying, well, you need to think in Chinese terms, a Chinese collector telling me about it. And I said, yeah, I totally get it, what you're saying. But the way you envision this is not necessarily the way you deal with customers outside of China. And Figurama is not based in China. So they can thread with legal action. Figurama simply is going to go the other way around. Simply just get rid of the vendor, deal with the legal action, find somebody else to do the freight. Now this freighter has lost business. Not only that, and some credibility among other people that are not going to hire them. They're going to find somebody else to do the work. And there's plenty of people willing to do the work. So even if they owe them money, it's just the way it is. Sometimes you have to deal. Even big corporations don't pay their bills sometimes. Believe me, sometimes they can take 6 months up to a year for them to pay an invoice. Big companies that have enough cash flow, they take forever to pay. When you're doing service, when you're selling a product, sometimes you have to deal with it. You go after them time and time again, but you have to be careful not to expose them, because then you're gonna lose the opportunity for money. If you take them to court for that money, you also have to pay for those fees, and that doesn't mean that you're gonna get paid. Particularly when you're dealing with a company that is external, is not in your country, that the court doesn't have authority over that company and cannot force that company to pay anything. So yeah, you have to work it out. It is a tough situation to be a business owner, but hey, it's part of the deal. This is why you choose to go in business. If you cannot handle the kitchen, the heat of the kitchen, then stay out of the kitchen. If you cannot handle being a business owner, then just be a worker. Just work for somebody else. Let them worry about those things. You only have to worry about getting paid. Do your job to get paid. But when you're running a company, it's a lot of headaches that you got to deal with. So that's all I want to say about that situation. Yeah, it's tough. I wish them luck, both of them. And hopefully they can handle things, behind closed doors in a more professional manner.